Hi, I'm Ranger Felipe, and I work right here in the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. As part of the National Park Service, we are the largest urban national park in the country. We have hundreds of miles worth of trails, we have canyons, mountain peaks, miles of coastline as well, with tide pools and flora and fauna all over. But if you look deeper, we have stories as well. Stories from our past, and here we have a gem that I'd like to share with you today. Today, I'm standing here at Bay Street Beach. During the early 20th century, this beach was derogatorily referred to as the Inkwell. But for the community that lived here at that time, this was much more than just a beach. This was a location where they can find community, acceptance, and connection. Right next to me is a plaque that's highlighting this very special time in our history. This plaque also calls out an individual, Nick Gabaldon. Nick Gabaldon was a surfer, and he's the first documented surfer of Black and Mexican descent. He was born right here in Los Angeles, and even went to school at Santa Monica High School just down the street. Nick lived during an especially challenging time. In the 1940s, this area was known to practice segregation. There were policies and laws in place that kept people of color out of establishments. Discrimination was part of the day-to-day routine, especially for someone like Nick. But the beach behind me is where Nick felt that freedom, was where he could go onto the beach and recreate freely. This is where Nick first started body surfing and where he eventually taught himself how to surf using surfboards designed for lifeguards. Now let me ask you a question. What do you think would be some of the challenges faced by a surfer of color in Santa Monica during the 1940s? Discrimination, racism, exclusion, lack of resources, lack of equipment. These are all likely answers. And for someone like Nick Gabaldon, he had to overcome those challenges. If he ever did find himself in a sticky situation, he was always able to turn to the ocean with no stigmas attached. Nick Gabaldon was so passionate about surfing, he would actually be known to get on his surfboard in Santa Monica, paddle 12 miles all the way here to Malibu just to surf a better wave. The locals here recognized him and they saw how good he was. And then he was part of the crew, surfing waves and enjoying the sun. Nick definitely had a connection with the ocean, and it was his tool to connect with nature. So I'd like you to ask yourselves, how do you connect with nature? Do you write? Do you take photographs? Do you draw? There are many ways to connect with nature. And surfing was not the only way that Nick did that. He also did it through writing. In time, he wrote a poem for submission to the Santa Monica College Literary Magazine. It was entitled Lost Lives. I'd like to read you an excerpt from his poem. Scores and scores have fallen prey to the slat of animosity, and many more will victims be of the capricious, vindictive sea. O avaricious ocean, so very strong, robust, powerful, I'm not wrong. Pounding, beating upon your cousin shore, come you clapping, rapping with a mighty roar. Nick Gabaldon. 1 week after submitting his poem to the magazine, Nick too fell victim and became a lost life to the sea. He was right here in Malibu, surfing the waves during a big swell. He was attempting to shoot the pier, meaning ride through the pilings of the pier. Unfortunately, he crashed and he never made it out. Folks found his body on the beach 3 days later. Though Nick passed away about 70 years ago, his legacy still lives on today. He challenged the status quo of the 1940s, and today there are nonprofits like Black Surfers Collective and Los Courage Camps that continue to carry that torch. They are paving the way for communities of color in the water and representing them in surf culture.
I think it was probably about About 10 years ago, maybe 15, I heard the Nick Gabaldon story, and it really impressed me because, you know, you kind of think in terms of your own life. I started hanging out here in the 70s and mid-70s, learned to surf, but I didn't really know how far back the history of surfing went here, and surfing, people of color surfing that went back here in Southern California. And Nick is really that history. He's that local. He grew up here in Santa Monica. He was a lifeguard here. And to know that he was here at this beach, the same beach that I learned to surf at back in the day, times when my father probably came down to the beach, is just, it's inspiring. The Black Surfers Collective is an organization and a surf club dedicated to the inclusion, diversity, and cultural awareness of surfing and the beach lifestyle. We share our love of surfing and the ocean with the public of Los Angeles.
Despite the challenges of the time, Nick Gabaldon's lifestyle represented resilience and courage. What are some of the challenges you might face when considering recreational opportunities? How do you persevere and achieve those? For myself and for countless others, Nick's story is inspiration. It allows us to go surfing as a very intentional act to remember the past, to enjoy the present, and think of the legacy that we're leaving behind for future generations. And that's really the mission of the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area, to protect nature, to protect stories, and share it with everyone. Well, looks like the swell is coming in. I'm gonna suit up, but I hope to see all of you out in the water. Take care.